The fifth principle of our ScaleX framework is process, and we host a year-long accelerator program to support SMEs who have a desire to scale. And during that workshop, that process workshop, we actually take them to an exemplar, a wonderful local company here in Northern Ireland. We're so fortunate to have them, a company called Seeding Matters. Seeding Matters are exemplars in lean. And we show, and part of the lean methodology, the lean concept is show, don't tell. So people can read, and when lean was first introduced to me, I thought you needed to have, 4 years degree and a PhD and kind of all of this operational expertise. This is over my head. I don't know this, but we'll recruit somebody in who knows lean and they're black belts in this and they're Six Sigma and that. And it's not that at all. It's actually compounding small improvements every single day over the course of a week, a month, a quarter. And we lean heavily on the distillation of the lean methodology by a guy called Paul Akers, who wrote a wonderful book called 2 Second Lean. And it's about creating a culture, something that you refer to, creating a culture of improvement. The biggest waste in any business is the waste of the unlocked potential within the people that reside within your business. That's the single greatest waste, because the culture doesn't support people in actually expanding their potential. People just go in, do what they've always done, and if they're not delivering value, the leadership just get more and more frustrated. The voices get louder, and you say, they're rubbish, they're rubbish, they're rubbish. Let's get rid of all of them, get more people in. The culture that Seeding Matters have created, when you go into their morning meeting starts at 7:45 every morning. 60 people in the company, a classic SME. They make orthopedic chairs, distribute those chairs across the globe. When you go into that morning meeting, it's about 20 minutes, and everyone within the company takes the opportunity to chair that meeting. So you could have Betty, who's a machinist, who's standing up, and she starts off with gratitude, and she shares with everybody what she's grateful for today. And she's given a little insight into her family. She's maybe grateful for her grandson who has just come through an operation. And everyone is now aware that Betty is a human being, has a grandson who has just gone through an operation. So there's an emotional bond that's being created just by the virtue of the fact that Betty, in the course of 3 minutes, has given some small gratitudes. Betty will then chat through some of the improvements that she made yesterday. She'll go round the room, invite any improvements that anyone else has found from yesterday, any issues that anyone needs to log on the improvements board, and they go through this process. And then Betty will finish off, take the entire company through some stretches, and they give everybody a round of applause, and they're off to do their 3S'ing, their sorting, their sweeping, they're standardizing. And it's a lovely, warm, human way of getting the best out of people. Betty could be my mother, who I could never envisage standing up amongst a group of 60 people, sharing, the background to what makes Betty Betty, and hosting this morning meeting, which is a bedrock of a lean mentality. And that's the culture. There's a WhatsApp channel that everybody feeds their improvements into. So it becomes almost this healthy competition of every person trying to improve their existing process. And ultimately, as people are encouraged to develop themselves, they develop their teams, and the organization develops as a whole. You eradicate the non-value, and ultimately what the customer gets is the best value product that they could possibly get. So we don't have that efficiency metric, but what I encourage people to do is find best practice exemplars to go and see and witness with their own eyes what can be done. And that's why I'm a huge fan of actually bringing people to companies like Seeding Matters to witness what best practice looks like in the context of process. The other side of the the argument here was the fact that I have to articulate to my customers that what we do is best value, that our efficiency is the best in the industry, and what they're getting is a competitively priced product or service. What I encourage people to do is stand in the shoes of the customer. None of us really like being sold to, but we will trust others who have experienced your product or service. And this is the power of testimonials. I can talk to, absolutely, brand advocacy. Get those who love what you do, those who have experienced that trust, experienced that value, and get them to tell others. Get the voice of your customer out there. If you don't already have customer testimonials, I encourage you, go and hire a videographer and spend an hour with a customer, ask great questions, and get the customer to tell you in their words where they've experienced value. Often we see, and I've seen this coming from an engineering environment, we have been emotionally involved in the development of this widget that we think is the best widget that's ever been developed, and it's galvanized and it vibrates this hertz and it does this, and I go, well, that's all great, but what does that mean for the customer? Why does that matter? If you can't articulate the value to your customer, then it's not fair that the customer should have to discern that value for themselves. So whatever you're doing in terms of the development, always look at it from the lens of your customer, and be able to articulate the value that this new widget that you've developed will actually make to the customer by either reducing their pain or bringing a gain.
One of the guys that I've met recently is a guy called David, and he's head of AWS, Amazon Web Services. And he gave me another concept, because we've all heard of MVP, right? Minimum viable product. And a minimum viable product could be the wheel of a car, right? So we're all excited because we've got a wheel. Well, we've got an MVP. Wow, how good is that? And the customer says, well, what am I going to do with a wheel? Right, so we're focusing our attention in the wrong place, right? So Amazon have changed MVP to MLP, minimum lovable product.
Love that.
A product that, when put in the hands of the customer, immediately fall in love with it because it's usable. And the way he articulates it is, he says, if we're trying to make a car and it starts with a wheel, the wheel is no good to anybody, and then the wheels and the chassis is no good to anybody. It's not until the car's done is it any good to anybody. So he says, so what we do is we do a skateboard, which is a minimum lovable product. Then we do a scooter, which is a minimum lovable product. Then we do a motorbike, then we do a car, because that minimum lovable product has been of use to the customer through its journey. Whereas a wheel on its own is of no use.
Yeah, I love that. I haven't heard that before. Minimum lovable product. And that's they've changed the frame there to encourage their designers to think about the product in the hands of the customer.